Hello everyone and welcome to yet another episode of CampusCare EdTalks. I, Sakshi Jain, your host for the show, would like to welcome you all. EdTalk is a platform where educators and leaders come on board and express their viewpoints related to education and society. And our topic for the discussion is how to encourage questioning in classrooms. And to express their viewpoints on the same, we have with us Miss Nutan ma'am, who's the principal of Diamond Jubilee High School, Mumbai. A very warm welcome to you, ma'am.
Thank you. Good evening to all.
So good to have you here, ma'am. Thank you for sharing your precious time with us. To start off with the session, ma'am, I would like to put across the very first thing that we would like to know from your end is how to make your classroom environment a safe place for questions.
Very pertinent, important question because that is one area which is totally forgotten. Now, to answer this, I would take everyone who's listening here to the point of the teacher and me. Okay. So, in the classroom, who are the important people? The important
Absolutely.
people is the teacher, the students, and of course you have the walls and all that, but let's not talk about the material part. I'm talking about the teacher and the student. How does one make a safe space? So as a teacher, one must create that environment of safe zone for the children where they feel that if I'm asking this question, my teacher is not going to humiliate me, or it's okay to ask any damn question that is there, anything. And my friends are not going to make fun, because sometimes the child feels that okay, my teacher is listening, but my friends will make fun of things. So this space that one creates of safety lies with the teacher or the educator. Okay, so that is one very important thing in teaching, that one must look into the space that if I am a teacher, how comfortable are my students in my classroom, that they are open to coming to me to ask any question, whether it is academics or whether it is personal or whether it is anything. Are we able to create that safe zone for them? That is, I think, the first important part of why we are into the teaching zone. It's not just the subject you're teaching, but I think as every teacher, you need to be counselor first to understand your students.
Absolutely, ma'am. So it's very important these days because nowadays that now that students have come back from an online medium to an offline medium, it is very difficult for them to even cope up with that change back to the usual. And there are students who are not even used to those environments because there's the very first time that they have started their school and that is online. So it was very new and to understand now that they were coming from a different behavior wherein they were the sole center of attraction at their homes, particular homes, but now that they have to sit in a classroom wherein you have 30 to 40 students, wherein each child has its own specific requirements and its own specific way of learning and interacting. So a classroom environment has to be it has to be safe in order to make them welcome to a environment like this, and especially after being so possessive and so being uh, you know apple of their everybody's eye.
Yeah.
Now that they have to come into that uniformity of having a class wherein everybody is equal.
So I think I should also add over here that a space that one, since we're talking about where you have so many children in the class and at the same time giving attention to everyone, is also, I think, the role of a teacher make is very important here, that you have to listen to everyone at the same time, to because you always have some children who always want attention even in class, so they want their hands are always raised, and there are some whose hands are not raised. So you need to create that space in the class where everybody is heard. At the same time, the others who are speaking too much, you need to tell them that okay, you will be speaking when it is your turn, or you will be allowed to speak when it is this. So it's the whole setup of visualizing how your whole classroom scenario would look like, you know. I think respecting every student who is there in the class, you know, from the backbencher to the front. And I actually do not like this term of being backbenchers and front benchers and this. So we actually in our school, we created this little zone that, you know, we call it as like a cubicle where the children sit in a cluster of 4 or 5 together. And we go from a zone where we are told the teachers that you're not going to teach something. So let's, from the teacher, like, you know, the olden time you have, I teach you listen, you know, those things. Now, I think we need to change that mantra of, you know, you explore, I will guide you. So that is the forefront, that let the children explore, let them find out things, and there will be a lot of questions in their mind. So you, as, because you're the adult there, you can guide them in the right direction and then move them on. So I think when you put them in those seating arrangement of 4 or 5, even if they don't want to share with their teacher, they can always share with their friends. You know, I think I have this question, I have this, and I have found this. So maybe with their friends or peers, they are more comfortable if they don't want to do it for the whole class. So even in that small zone, they can create wonders.
Absolutely, ma'am. Yeah. So
Mm.
yes, ma'am. So, ma'am, how to encourage students for asking, students. So it's like, generally the encouragement is only that the student is able to interact with the teachers when you've to supposed to answer, ask questions or something like that. So how do you encourage the interaction between the students when they have to interact and ask each other the questions?
So as I said, you know, now one has to completely change the teaching from, as I said, I teach you listen, to let the children explore. So if I have to teach a topic of any topic, uh, why don't we give it to the children to explore? What do they feel? If you're teaching a poem or anything, let them explore. What do they feel about it? Rather than we throwing it on them. Okay, for example, if I have to teach daffodils as a poem, you know, you start with daffodil. This is the first paragraph. This is the second part. Some are interested, some are not. But if I would just say, tell the child, okay, in group, you're discussing about the poem, and you know, ask the child. We don't ask, you know, what do you feel about this paragraph, or what do you feel about this. Let them come out with the queries and let them come. So for me, I think encouraging the student is, besides giving them a safe space, it's also important to allow them to explore, allow them to just be open and free with, because we are in an age right now after COVID, we all know that uh, most, all our children, not even most, I'm saying all our children are now with smartphones. And so if I ask them anything, the first thing they will Google search. So use that part, because they are respecting the Google more than the teacher now. So then why not why not use that as, okay, a teaching medium? All right. So your questioning would also be in that zone that a child should feel something of learning rather than teaching. So I would rather teach, let them explore, let them try out whatever they feel, and they will fail, but eventually they will have to come back to, okay, I failed, and there, now what?
Absolutely, ma'am. So, ma'am, just want to understand that since you've clearly told that people are now more relying on Google for that matter of fact. So, how do you tap curiosity in students?
How do you tap curiosity in students? That actually has to be right from the beginning in kindergarten and uh, right from primary grade, because children by and large as human being they're always curious. Okay, it's somehow it dies off later. So right from the beginning one has to allow that curiosity to keep going. So as I said, is how to inculcate curiosity is again you will have to change the concept in which we are teaching right now, and not for exam, not for this thing, more of a project based thing, or more of a uh, build where the child will have to explore. So the underlining fact is they will have to explore whatever medium they use. I don't care, but let them explore. And as teachers, there's also a problem that we as teachers we always look at what I have to teach rather than a teacher also need to understand that there are three questions I tell them. One is what, of course, you know what you have to teach, why you are teaching that, and how are you going to teach that. Okay, so these are the three things. If a teacher can answer, then I think it will reach the student, because many times even teachers don't know why they are teaching certain things. They tell me it is there in the curriculum, so I have to teach. So that's a sad part. But one can change. So even if you dig it down, you know certain things why we are doing, however complex it would be. And if a teacher can arouse that curiosity that we are learning this for this, whatever reason, and then I think the child will get. But rather than what we do is we kill that curiosity right in the beginning. So I think the new mantra now that comes in education, in experiential learning, and all that, but then has to carry on right from kindergarten to higher grades. It, it cannot die off somewhere in between, because one has to go beyond the textbook to arouse that curiosity in a child. And they are, by and large, children are very curious. Even as adults, we are curious. But somehow we just let ourselves die in those range.
Absolutely, ma'am. Yeah, so ma'am, understanding that fact now that you said that we have to change in teaching style, the learning style, the way we used to have initially or traditionally. So, ma'am, according to you, what is the importance of contemplating questions in growing children?
Huh. That's even I am still contemplating on that, because it's very easy for me to say, but it's very difficult to right now work on it. And many a times I have been thinking how children, because sadly we are in this age of instant everything, Maggie noodles, everything we want fast, fast. And for a child to contemplate a question, one needs to just sit and think, which is not very easily happening. You know, you ask a child something, immediately they go on the internet and they want that answer. So again, as I said, it's not very easily answered, but the answer to this would be is right from the beginning, if we would allow children to just sit still in the state of mindfulness, where uh, at least 10 minutes. I think if the school, you call it meditation, you call it yoga, you call it anything that you want in school. But I think one requires this to do in school with children, that you just stay still with your own self 10 minutes, 15 minutes in a classroom, circle time, or whatever, that a child is able to stay with his own mind. Right now, they are too distracted of thinking on anything. So as I said, it's not very easy for them to contemplate or anything. You speak and it's like, they just blah blah, it just comes out for them. So it is important. It's a very important factor of contemplating. And I think as educators, one must think seriously about this aspect because if you don't, the next generation of children that we are getting into, it's just a rat race of okay, Google search and find. So they are not actually thinking of what am I doing it right, or am I, if there is any rational in doing it or something. But I think it's the state because even when I feel that I am at a crossroad of what I have to do, you just be with yourself, being mindful, stay. I think mindfulness is something which we will have to take it more seriously with our children and work on it to just contemplate with what they understand and do.
Absolutely, ma'am. So the takeaway from this session would be the mindfulness. We have to have that mindfulness of now that we are changing into a new system of entirely, new kids and new generation happening to understand a new way of understanding and teaching and learning. So thank you so very much, ma'am, for imparting your knowledge and experience on the
I
topic.
have a little more to share
Yes,
just
ma'am.
because when you're talking on questioning, like we have in our school, like you get these newspapers and education, like the Times of India gives and all. So when it came to us, we said, okay, these are the papers the children will have to read. Now, very easily said, children don't read. So we said, okay, let's take a general knowledge test on it. Again, you don't find much change because the rein is still with the teacher. The teacher wants to ask questions. So we change the fact that what if a child is making the question paper, the GK? So if a child is doing it, the child will have to go through the paper, read through the paper, pick up those questions, answer those questions, and then make a paper. And we tried as an experimental with children. I said everybody gets a time. So if you're doing in a 1 week, you have a whole year. So first roll number one does, roll number two does, second, and you pick up the best paper of it is. And there was a very, it was a fantastic job done by children because you are allowing them to explore. You're allowing them to go through it. You're allowing them to what the mind of a child thinks. So I think, as I said, change of role from the teacher that I am no longer going to teach and I'm not going to set the question. And so allow the children to explore, allow them to make mistakes, allow them to work. And I think if you allow them, they are going to contemplate also and sit peacefully to read that paper that because I have to do this task of making that paper. So I think if we allow in future maybe other subjects also, children will do a good job. Why not?
Absolutely, ma'am. So it is like a role reversal of how a student and a teacher interacts. So now the teacher will become the student and the students will become the teachers in order to,
I would say a teacher would become more an educator or a guide
right.
rather than, I wouldn't take away the role of a teacher completely.
No, no, so the style of teaching. The
Yes.
style of teaching should be, in a more interactive and a more involvement base. So yes, ma'am, of course. So it was an indeed an insightful session and an informative session from your end, ma'am. We've really discussed some real life experiences wherein you have quoted certain examples that you carry out in your school system. uh, thank you so very much, ma'am. We're looking forward to much more sessions like this on you, with you. So with this note, ma'am, I would like to sign off, and to
Thank
our
you.
audience, have a great day and a great evening ahead.
Thank you so much, and Slav and Tab, for
Yes,
inviting me. It was wonderful sharing my thoughts with the larger platform. Thank you, and all the very best to everyone. Thank you.
thank you so very much, ma'am. Have a nice day.